Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Blue Qubit Executive Intelligence webinar. Today, I wanted to shift the conversation from just a little bit. We're not going to be focusing on firewalls, antivirus, or technical terminologies, but the perspective is going to shift a little bit to the business side of things, because when something goes wrong, the CEO isn't necessarily asking what happened to the servers. They're asking, can we still operate? Are our customers affected? What's our exposure, and how quickly can we resolve? Now, for those of you who have joined us previously or watched the recording of our earlier conversations in the series, you already know and are familiar with Feroz Hanif, our CEO and founder, that we have today. Welcome back, Feroz.
Good morning, Kerianne. Thank you for having me again.
Awesome. So we're going to jump right into things. Feroz, from your perspective as a CEO, when you think about cybersecurity, what are the business concerns that immediately come to mind?
As a CEO, any kind of threat to the business is considered a risk factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just as we have our competitors or the shift in business or government policies, all of these are risks, and cybersecurity is no different. Right? When you look at a disaster recovery plan for a natural disaster, right, or a technology disaster, right, cybersecurity once again needs to have the same kind of risk factor. It needs to have the same governance in place for a restore in case something happens, right? Um, Having that operational readiness is critical for any business survival, and cybersecurity has to be a big component of that. So.
Yes, I totally agree with that, and that's where we want to take the conversation today. Before we get into what technology someone should use, it's very important that the conversation starts off with what does the business need to protect, and what absolutely cannot afford to stop. So let's jump into things a bit. All right, so I want you to just take a look at this and imagine a cyber incident can begin in one system, but very quickly become an operational issue. We discussed this in the last webinar, where Rafiq gave some points about how quickly that ripple effect can happen and behind the scenes. So imagine an email is unavailable for an entire day. For some organizations, that alone affects customer communication, approval, sales, internal coordination, and decision making. So now imagine that finance is affected, operations can't access the systems, and customer information isn't available. At that point, the issue isn't really the technology anymore, right? The issue
Right.
is that business cannot function normally. And Feroz, at your level, if that happens, what does your attention go to first?
Look, first and foremost, when there is a cyber breach, um, panic happens, right? And as a leader in the organization, you want to eliminate that panic and have a uh, standard operating procedure for how to deal with a cyber attack, and that needs to be activated. If you think about it, right, right when a breach happens, there is a lot of chaos starting to happen, and to kind of bring that chaos down to a structured operating procedure. That is what a CEO would be looking to do right away, right? Because nothing can operate, nothing can happen. And the more chaos, right, that spreads across the organization, the bigger the disruption. So activating that SOP, if you may, right, for how to deal with a cybersecurity breach. I think that's the first and foremost thing.
So I see you're saying that ensuring that your recovery is your priority, how quickly you can recover from that. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, contain and recover, right? So first is when a cybersecurity breach is happening, a lot of times it's not a flip of a switch. It's kind of spreading right across the system, just like a wildfire, right? And so the first response needs to be how do we contain it, right? Once it's contained, then get into the recovery mode.
Right. And I totally agree there. And traditionally, we normally see where cybersecurity was focused heavily on defending the networks and counting blocked threats and treating security as technology expense. Now, we're going to look into something more broader, where protecting business operation and protecting revenue, measuring how quickly the organization can recover and bringing cyber risk into enterprise risk management and board level governance. So that's the shift that I want to take. So with that in mind, what kind of cybersecurity information is actually useful to a CEO or a board?
I think first and foremost is, what is the level of impact to the organization, right? A quick assessment of, what systems, what departments are impacted, number of people that may be impacted, right? And where is the threat coming from? You know, uh, I think in that very moment when the CEO gets that first communication that there is a cyber attack, right? What's going into the CEO's mind is how big is it, right? What is the ultimately impact to the business operations and the revenue, as you point out, right?
Right. And with those numbers, it can become a whole lot. And a lot of CEOs may say, oh, that's a lot of data. What does that really mean? And it's also translating that information into something useful where enough of questions that say, what needs attention? What does the business impact? What should we prioritize? And that's what we emphasize here at Blue Qubit Consulting, giving that data that you will understand and how you can move in terms of your priorities, because our system does prioritize it for you and let you know what's higher on the risk level. So we have with us a blast radius for a cyber event. And this is probably one of the simplest ways to understand the cyber risk. At the center, we have the technical event. Servers locked, data encrypted, systems unavailable, but the impact starts moving outward. And this is where we talked about the operations come to a stop. Customers may experience server disruption, legal and compliance issues may arise. Then reputation, which is very vital. This becomes part of the problem. So the real concern isn't only whether an incident happens and how far that incident is able to spread. What do you think about controlling the wider business impact when it goes to the reputation part of it?
You hit on a few points there. And when you talk about reputation goes both ways. One is, in this day and age, cyber attacks are fairly common. So first is, for a company to have a plan in place, right? And be able to execute on that plan if an event happens, such that, as you depict over here, it is contained within ring one, right? It never gets to ring two. Now, why does it matter from a reputation perspective? It matters because any given company's customers and suppliers are looking at that brand to say, how resilient is that company? When you do a full disclosure and say, hey, had a cyber attack and we did not let it pass ring one, right? And that adds to the brand recognition. On the flip side, right, if a company is not ready, does not have the SOPs in place for quick execution, and this event goes all the way to ring five, right? At that point, the reputation is at risk. Uh,
Mhm.
it just gives the signals to the suppliers and partners that the company that they're doing business with, um, does not have the internal standard operating procedures to recover from a disaster, a cybersecurity disaster, right? But then there could be, so many other disasters as well. So once you have a dent on the brand, it kind of cascades to so many other impacts that your customers and suppliers may be looking at, right? So yeah, brand really, really matters here, brand reputation.
Mhm. And it's interesting you mentioned that the customer and the customers and they think it's the company that they're interacting with. And a lot of times we see where these risk doesn't normally come from within your environment. It can be a third party organization, another vendor provider that you're dealing with, but because your name is there, you are the one that will be held accountable. So we have to look at the ecosystem around their business to ensure that that protection is into play. And the questions move from just simply asking, do we have antivirus, to what is our cybersecurity posture? All right. So I want to have a quick discussion here with everyone. I want you to just go ahead and let me know. I'm going to pause for a little poll. I want to know what's interesting IT observation that major roles in your technical response. So, what's an interesting IT observation that you have noticed in your major response, technical response? So it can either be from the operation stop, what you tell customers, whether insurance is activated, how is the risk, the conversation becomes much more broader. So just let me know.
I I think while people may be falling on this, Kerianne, uh, the chief information officer
Mhm.
at the end of the day is the person accountable when a cybersecurity attack happens, right? Just like you have the chief financial officer who's responsible for making sure the company's finances are in order and there is enough cash flow, there's a healthy balance, all of that, right, across the organization. The chief information security officer is responsible for how a cybersecurity threat is managed, um, in my opinion. The rest of the parties may have some responsibilities, like the IT department and the managed service providers have a responsibility to enable and act on whatever that SOP is, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's the chief information security officer responsible.
Yes. And they are the ones that we should hold accountable in terms of that and how to move forward. So where do you, Feroz, see the line between technical ownership and executive accountability in that stance?
Look, the technical ownership, no doubt, is within the IT department. But when you talk about uh, the actual strategy for recovery, or actually even before that, when you talk about the defense for your environment, right? At a business continuity level, that is owned by the chief information security officer, right? And
Mhm.
that's business. Uh, but then when you go down the layers of the strategy being implemented, at some point, people would take a look at what is the right security tools and the right configurations across the organization in order for the technical competency to be there to defend the organization first and foremost, and then do a recovery.
Right. All right. That's the kind of thing that we're looking for to addressing the strategies and also the risk assessment, so that in the middle of the incident, everyone doesn't go to chaos. So who's responsible for where, and how do we move smoothly through? So we're gonna jump into a little calculation. Yes, you've seen my calculator in the productivity series. I'm bringing one back for cybersecurity, because what is all these tools without knowing how we will be affected? What is our ROI? How can we put this into monetary value? So I'm not gonna give you a lot of numbers or any number here. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about it. So the most useful question is, what is your number, right? And what does 1 hour of downtime in an organization cost you? You've got the operation downtime itself, recovery, and forensic cost, a potential loss of customers, and legal and compliance. If we look at it from an hourly cost of operational downtime, and then we add that. So this is multiplied by each person in the organization, right? Because everyone is affected. And then we add that to the system recovery. So what does that take to actually get into recovery mode? And then we add that to the loss of customer trust. So you have customers that have been with you for 10 years, new customers coming on, and everyone now is affected. These are customers that you may potentially lose. So we add that together. And then we go into compliance, fines, and legal fees, because if something happens, we have to now protect, because people will say, my data was out there. Someone has my data, and they're going to try to recover. Maybe their systems went down, they lost something. So now we have to think about what that may look like for us. Is there a possibility that we will have to pay out some fees? And all of that together brings you that total business impact. How should organizations think about cybersecurity investment against the potential business loss, Feroz?
I'm glad that you brought up this calculator, because a lot of times people think about just the time that is lost, right? Uh, some of this is even harder to predict, like the customer that is lost, right? And you have a potential figure that you can plug in, right? But you don't have something very concrete. The other thing that most small businesses do not realize is the fines and penalties if customer information, personal information is leaked. Um, and so, uh, honestly, the total business impact, even if you try to dial the best number that you have, is still an estimate, a guess. And you truly do not know the exact business impact until at least, a year or two later,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because as you're going through, well, first is trying to plan that number is difficult. Then you make a lot of assumptions, like, maybe you lose a customer that is valued at 2 million. But in reality, when it actually happens, it could be 4 million, right? So trying to predict this number is challenging to begin with. Then, as it's happening, it's not feasible to focus your attention on day-to-day basis. What is that revenue loss, right? What does happen is it is an after the fact when you really exactly know the number. Uh, but I'm glad you're bringing this up with the audience over here, because, as you know, most people, when they think about what is the cost of the business, they're thinking about just the hourly employees,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some may think about the hourly employees and the loss of revenue, right? Because it's downtime, no one can actually produce, right?
Mhm.
But most people don't think about, the time it takes to recover. And sometimes the time to recovery is not in a matter of days, it's in the matter of months and years, right? Um, and then, I'm going to touch once again on the compliance and legal fees, right? You can
Mhm.
imagine, for a given organization, depending on the magnitude of the impact, there may be a lot of legal fees and penalties and fines as a result of a cyber breach. We've all seen it, right? Where some of the large companies that are out there, when they have a data breach and a class action lawsuit is filed, then it's a pretty big number, right?
Yeah.
And then it's not just what goes out to the people and
Mm.
it's distributed as part of the settlement. um, the lawyer fees and the time that all of a sudden you have your corporate attorney invest in fighting a lawsuit, right? All of that is basically, in my opinion, going into this business impact number.
Yeah. That is absolutely correct. And definitely you mentioned with those bigger businesses, you see where those numbers can add up, and you a customer standing on the outside may see, okay, they've paid out this to this company, but they don't know what's happening behind the scenes where a cybersecurity threat can really impact your business. So it's not just about one or two in small incidents. The incident may look small, but the impact can be very great. So understanding exposure. What does exposure cost you? What are the major financial or operational loss? And then that is when you decide how to change how you think about protecting it. So protecting your business comes along with understanding that exposure. All right, so we have with us a scenario for the 48-hour operational freeze. So let's make a very practical situation here. So it's a Monday morning, your systems are encrypted, digital communication is disrupted. By hour 4, finance is asking how payroll will be processed. Operations is asking how orders will be fulfilled. And by hour 12, insurance becomes part of the discussion. By hour 24, customers may need information. And by hour 48, leadership is making major recovery decisions. Now, forget the cyber terminology for a second that we've been using over the past few weeks. Could your business operate for those 48 hours on this situation? So, first, what do you think about this scenario here?
Yeah, I'm glad that you're bringing more practicality into this discussion, right? Um, the way I see it is, um, we have gotten so dependent on technology
Mhm.
that it'd be like saying, can we go back to the paper and pen mode of operation? And that's not practical anymore, right? The pace at which our businesses operate, right, is exponentially faster than when we were paper and pen based. Technology has enabled us to move business operations fairly quickly, right?
Mhm.
Make informed decisions very quickly. And so I cannot imagine my businesses that are 100% digital businesses. We do not have any paper and pen.
Mhm.
We, our business would come to a complete halt until recovery is made, right? And so, yeah, for us, it's like going back to writing with a paper and pen, and we would not survive.
Definitely. And with a lot of dependency on technology, this is where the ecosystem for cybersecurity is very important. And this is where we walk you through these steps in our one on one assessments on how to manage something like this. Not to get to 48 hours, because our system is advanced where it picks up anything and isolates that and fix it right away. Or if you're needed, we call upon you. So a lot of businesses will not be able to survive if we had that freeze for 48 hours for sure. And a lot of what we do see is some don't recover, especially those small to medium sized businesses, they tend not to recover. So for us, how do we get that get them to a place where they can, outside of course, getting the software that's needed, which is the cybersecurity software, what else can we do for them?
Look, first and foremost, there needs to be, I think we talked about it, there needs to be a plan, a strategy, right? It's not about the technology. It's not about choosing the right tool, right? That comes in later. What's more important is, looking at the different business systems and defining, what that defense strategy needs to be. What layers of your business needs to be protected, right? And then once you have all of those in place, right, then you may decide on a technology component. To give you an example, right, in any given organization, you have on-premise uh, business infrastructure, you have off-premise business infrastructure, you may have multiple different business sites or people working from different parts of the world, right? Um, this day and age, a lot of the companies have remote workforce, right, all around the world. And from a business continuity perspective, there are handshakes that happen with people that may be in different time zones, in different regions of the world, right? And so looking at the bigger picture of your entire organization, where does your business process start, where those handshakes are, and in between, are we crossing borders? Are we crossing networks, right? Are we crossing over to different type of systems? If you're dealing with government has certain type of systems, right? Um, and taking all of that account to then create a business uh, resilience strategy, right? Business continuity strategy that incorporates the cybersecurity component in it. So I hope I have given enough nuggets there without talking about the technology itself.
Yes, yes, you certainly have. And it brings to mind a method that is commonly used is called like a tabletop testing, where leadership goes around the table and the questions that you've just posed, like who makes the decision, who contacts customers, how does it operate? So find in with that, you end up finding the gap um by using just this exercise, and then you can know where you would need to rely more on cybersecurity, where those dependencies, and this kind of exercise helps the organization to have a bit more clarity and visibility into where best to go from. All right. So the structure behind everything is what we've discussed so far: risk management, operational resilience, compliance, and trust cyber insurance. And underneath it all, you have the executive accountability and board governance. Rather than me going through each in detail, Feroz, I want you to help us with these four pillars. Where do you think leadership often has the biggest blind spots?
First and foremost, I believe in one person or one authority for accountability. So when we say executive accountability, right, and the foundation, I firmly believe that a chief information security officer should be designated, right, in the organization. So it's one person, one accountability. Once again, it doesn't have to be a dedicated role, but it's one that could be shared with another role in the organization, but it has to be there. And then the board governance, executive governance has to be there. Now, let me talk a little bit about these pillars as you mentioned, risk management, right? And when you talk about risk management is a much broader strategy that needs to be in place. Um, just as any organization should be looking at its competitors, it should be looking at what's happening within the policies, government policies, and changes to the policies. Right? Should be looking at customer feedback as part of the risk management as well. Right? Cybersecurity is no different. And so within the risk management, identifying where there are potential entry points where cyber criminals can come in, right? So it could be from your network layer, it could be from the business systems that you're using, the cloud hosted systems that you're using, right? And then going down to the departmental levels, right? Is it the HR system? And are the right controls in place, right? The right people need to have the right access at the right time, right? And so are the right controls in place if you're looking at the HR systems, if you're looking at, your financial management system, your ERP system, right? All of those step by step, one by one, looking at identifying where there may be gaps. You could have a business processing system that has standalone user access control, right? In my opinion, this day and age, that's a risk, right? And then you mitigate that, you figure that out as part of your plan, right? Um, Let me jump into operational resiliency. Resilience, right, is how can you survive without completely bringing the entire organization to a halt,
Mhm.
right? Typically, as we talked about earlier, cybersecurity starts at one point and then spreads, right? And so, what are the critical paths within your organization that need to have maybe a higher level of threat analysis, a higher level of maybe protection, right? Because those business processes, if they come to a halt, the company is completely at halt, right? Um, so identifying what those business process and the systems in place are, and then looking at do those systems have the right level of user control and security in place. Right? When we talk about compliance and trust, look, uh, I'll give an example of the marketing department, right? Where, as we know, there's data privacy and security policies that have to be implemented. And imagine if you have a CRM system, right? And what you want to do is make sure that the CRM systems have the right controls in place because you know n- not having the right control means customer information that could potentially leak, right? And as you know, once again, there is a lot of compliance, fines, penalties around that. And that's also a bigger area, in my opinion, where you could have a higher exposure, right? So looking at not only marketing, I use marketing as an example. Different organizations may have different departments, right? Um, Let me jump over to cyber insurance. Cyber insurance these days has become part of business insurance, just like any organization needs to have the business insurance in place. A lot of companies, a lot of suppliers and vendors are now asking whether a company has cyber insurance.
Mhm.
um, there are a lot of different vendors now, larger corporations that are offering a cybersecurity insurance policy, and I would highly recommend that. As we're getting into the cybersecurity space, attacks happen on a minute basis, not an hourly or daily basis, right? And millions of dollars are at risk. And so having that cybersecurity insurance gives the board a peace of mind that even if all fails, uh, there is a cybersecurity insurance policy that will help recover from whatever financial losses a company may have.
Mhm. Yes, definitely agree there. And all comes down to what is your priority, because you mentioned the gaps that may come up into evaluation. And a lot of this is not every gap has the same response, and not every organization needs the exact same cybersecurity setup. So, understanding what your priorities are, where the gaps are, and then having that one on one conversation with us so that we can point you to where is the weakest link on that chain or in that workflow, so we can get you up to cybersecurity readiness. So thank you so much for breaking that down for us. But let's focus a little bit on readiness, because yes, we know that it can happen at any point in time. As you mentioned, it's now down to the minute. So what do we need to be prepared? And I want everyone to treat this as a quick self check. So as much as we go through this, I want you to now think on the back of your mind, do we have it in our organizations? Are we covered in this different areas? So visibility, do we actually see where our critical business data lives? What about continuity? Can each department continue if its main software fails? Liability, do our current security controls align with our cyber insurance requirements? Governance, is the cyber risk being discussed meaningfully at executive or board level? If you're not completely sure about one of these answers, just put a mental question mark beside it. So, Feroz, um, what would you want to see behind these answers in terms of persons being ready for this checklist?
I'll first start with the governance, right? From a governance perspective, right, first and foremost, there needs to be an SOP around systems, user access, right? And the right controls need to be in place. And they have to be reviewed, right? So if you can think about this, right, even from a shared directory, folder directory perspective, right? The right SOP needs to be in place of when someone gets access, who's the person authorizing the access, right? Who's the person who is going to be implementing that access? Um, and that needs to cascade down to every single system, right? It has to be documented and it has to be proactively audited, right? And from an executive perspective, what I would be looking for is, kind of like a dashboard of, what are all those systems, who are some of the people, which departments have what type of access, right? And then how frequently the audit is done. Um, in my organization, we're instituting a quarterly or audit of those systems. Now, that's part of the governance. Now, what I will also say is that governance needs to be documented and be available to the appropriate people across the organization. Right? I think as part of that governance, there needs to be some level of training that needs to be available to every employee on how they should handle the information and the knowledge, the institutional knowledge that they may have for the organization.
Mhm.
Uh,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you had a question there?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to jump on to continuity, right? Now, while you may have all the controls in place and you're doing audit, right, there still needs to be a contingency plan in place. If all breaks and there is a cyber attack, right, how do you continue your business? And that's where we were thinking, we're talking earlier about mapping out the critical business process
Mhm.
and the systems behind it, right? And when I say critical, I mean that those systems, those business processes and systems that will allow the company to still run uh, and meet the customer's needs, right? Uh, yeah, so those continuity plans still need to be in place, documented, published in the right repositories. I think that also connects with the first bullet or first area that you have around visibility, right? Mapping the critical business systems. Those critical business systems have to go into the contingency or backup recovery, whatever plan that you have in place, right? I could tell you, like, if there's a disaster and if you have your HR system go down, typically in an organization, the HR system is the first one that you have to recover, right? People should get paid first so that they can actually come to work and then help with the recovery, right? So the HR systems, the payroll system have to be the first ones to come up. Let me touch a little bit about liability, and we kind of touched a few minutes ago. Um, a lot of people think of getting a cybersecurity, and they will have a blanket cybersecurity policy, right? I
Mhm.
would recommend that, if the mapping of the business system, the critical business systems have been done, right? Then based on those critical systems, business process and the systems, the insurance policy has to be defined, right? Rather than a blanket, which unfortunately may or may not cover um, in terms of insurance policy, right? May not cover. Uh, you want to go very specific. It's no different than when you buy a car insurance policy, right? You look at all the different type of incidents that could happen, and then based on those type of incidences, you have coverages, right? Um, And so don't think of cybersecurity any different, right? A lot of cybersecurity companies will offer a blanket cybersecurity, $3 million, $5 million, whatever, right? And you want to go down to the individual business systems and identify, what would be your uh, recovery dollar amount for those systems.
Right. Okay. I heard a lot about like having the evidence rather than assumptions, clear risk owners. We talked a little bit about critical system mapping. And to get you ready for what that assessment would look like, organizations need to identify those question marks and decide which deserves attention first, right? Which is where you kind of break down each individual point. And with having that clarity, it's much easier for us to go to the next step. And that's part of what we do in our one-on-one assessment. We give that audit report at the end of the assessment so persons can have that to see what's going on into their organization. And a lot of persons we see, we ask them, hey, if we ask the question today, hey, what does your cybersecurity what you have currently, what does it tell you? What are some of the numbers? It's either a case of they're not sure because it's so much data, or they have too many dashboards, as you mentioned, having that one dashboard. So they would need someone to go through everything just to even bring up one point. So it's having that ecosystem where persons can be able to move from a vulnerable state into future ready, which brings us to closing up. We're almost at the end of the webinar, and I wanted to, before we go into the final step, Rose, I wanted to find out from you. Do you have any recommendation that you would give to leaders out there that may be listening or watching this recording today?
Yeah, especially for small, medium-sized companies that are going through their digital transformation, right? There's a lot out there right now about digital transformation, AI, agentic AI, right? Um, what I would leave this audience with is that while there is a lot of benefits going through a digital transformation, no doubt about it, right? While there are significant business improvements that can come about as you start to use AI and agentic AI, right? Lots of efficiencies may come along that. The risk to your uh, information within the company is getting bigger and bigger, and actually, I would say massive at this point for those companies that are 100% digital.
Mhm.
Cybersecurity is critical, it's foundational, right? Without this foundation, if someone is actually building their digital business blocks, if you may, right, your business processes uh, as you go through your digital transformation, uh, without having the right cybersecurity continuity strategy plan, uh, is a recipe for disaster. It's not about if a cybersecurity attack will happen, it's when it happens and how do you react to it.
Thank you so much. And for those in the audience, if you have any questions, any comments, and you would like to make it, this is the time you can open up your mic or send that question into the chat. And while those questions may come in, if you have any, I want to just let you know that we do have a complimentary cybersecurity one-on-one consultation that you can come and speak to an advisor at Blue Qubit Consulting, where we can talk a little bit about your cybersecurity posture, show you a demo of our cybersecurity management solution. You can scan the QR code or just type in the chat, "I'm ready," and I'll go ahead and reach out to you about that as well. I do see a question coming. How do I know which product should I buy? I'm a small business. And before I hand that over, maybe hand over to Feroz, I want to say buy our product. So we offer that cybersecurity solution management here at Blue Qubit Consulting. Scan that QR code to have that one-on-one conversation, and we'll be able to do a demo for you. It's an all-in-one platform built and powered by AI, so you will be able to get that ready, available from start to finish. Endpoint protection, VPN protection, email. So whatever your needs are, we're able to bring you through that audit and give you those necessary steps. For us, any input around that, if persons are
Yeah,
looking?
I'm gonna, so this question is for a small business,
Mhm.
right? And a small business owner, I'm assuming. And a lot of times people think about cybersecurity, they're thinking, "Oh my God, it's a massive investment." Um, First and foremost, it is not. It is no longer a massive investment. It used to be that, maybe about 5, 7 years ago, that only Fortune 1000 companies with large IT departments could afford to have cybersecurity,
Mhm.
right? But where we are now, cybersecurity has become more of a utility. And especially for small businesses, what should matter most is, one solution that kind of takes care of everything. And it doesn't require a lot of IT investment, and it does not require an army of people, IT people, to manage those systems, right? Small businesses just across the board have very limited budgets,
Mhm.
IT budgets specifically, right? A lot of them don't have an IT team, right? They may have a one person or two people, right? Some may even contract it out to a third party. And so, from my perspective, for a small business, they should be looking at a software system that uh, takes care of um, a lot of these threats without human intervention. And the tools, I think, that are out there today, especially as you mentioned, Kerianne, uh, Blue Qubit's cybersecurity product, I know is AI driven and resolves almost 85 to 90% of the threats using AI capabilities.
Mhm.
So first, it's there to defend, and once something does get penetrated into the environment, to then contain it and block it so it doesn't spread. If all of that can be done through one tool that is uh, automated, has maybe AI capabilities, that's what I would look at, right?
Mhm.
Once again, keeping the budget in mind.
Mhm. Yes, and I do want to add it is a very cost effective and it scales with you. So wherever you are, we are there with you, and wherever you grow to, we are able to scale. And I think that's a good place for us to close off. Don't see any more questions or concerns coming through. So I do want to thank you, Feroz, for joining me today. You've left some amazing nuggets, and I hope you at home and in the audience that are listening, you have taken notes. You've gone through the different steps to make those mental assessments and mental checks, and then now you're at the point where you're ready to reach out to us to start you on your journey for building or improving your cybersecurity posture. Thank you so much, Feroz, for joining me today. Um,
Brian,
Awesome. So I do, before I go, yes, the series continues next week. We're back at it again, and we're talking about AI, how AI is changing cybersecurity. A lot of you may be wondering, AI and cybersecurity have become one or they're together now? Yes, yes. And we come to that session, you will hear how it's changing things. We hinted a few times throughout the webinar series how AI has been implemented within it. So we're going to talk about the good and the bad and how we can get you in a great place to understand the risk and to go to better visibility, which will prepare you for the future. So thank you everyone for coming on board. Remember, resilience is a deliberate leadership choice. Ensure your business is ready. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I will see you next week. Bye.
thank you. Bye bye.